Pages with Peter Anosike. This is our world, a world where we talk books, books and books. That's my world. So welcome to my world. Just leave your cares behind and step into our world. This world was built with you in mind, so knock and the door will open. Seek and you will find. Ask and you will be given. Welcome, Dr. TJ, to the Pages. Well, this is a program where authors, publishers, booksellers come and talk about books. Okay. We also review authors' books in this program. So, welcome to our world.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Anosike. It's my pleasure to be around here. And I really want to say that I know it's going to be a wonderful time and it's going to be a nice discussion for today. And we're going to dig deep more into what our listeners, they would like to know 1, 2, 3 things about.
Yeah, so to start with, who are you, sir?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. You're asking a question that sounds like that of a philosopher. Who are you? It's a very big question. And, you know, if I might go by the definition of what's in the literary world, how do you really say, or who do you really say you are, is by what people say about you, by what you say about yourself, and by what you yourself you are. So, looking at all this, what I can say about myself is that I'm a writer. I've been writing for years now, and I've decided that I'm going to write all my life because I've seen writing as one of the greatest trade in the universe. What is what more than the moment, and what if you can do, you can outlive your time, you can outlive the space, and you can outlive anyone else. So that's what I do.
Just like William Shakespeare.
Yes, exactly. Because although at the beginning of writing, people don't tend to appreciate it. But in the long run, people tend to like it. But later on, they do find out that it's not an easy trade that somebody can easily go into. So that's why you see that a lot of people like to be a writer, but they ended up not being able to be a successful writer.
But you've not really told us your name.
Okay, well, my name is Olatubosun Taufik Oladele. That's the free name that I bear.
I know you as TJ.
Yeah.
And I know that I met you about 10 years ago, and what brought us together is books.
Yeah, exactly.
So, are you an initiate of this world, or were you born into it?
Well, I should say that I'm an initiate of this world.
How did you begin?
Well, I started right from infancy through my mother. My mother happens to be more of this kind of women that do try to make their children to understand that life itself is a bandwidth of stories. So at home, whatever my mom is doing, she's always telling a story through them. And often than not, all our corrections are done through storytelling. In fact, some of the poems that I later wrote in my collection, Humans and Other Beings, I took some of the words of my mom. My mom was the one that told me sometime long ago, she said this in Yoruba expression, Akin Pojo Ikuda. That expression was so deep. When I grew up,
can you translate it into English?
I think Pojo Kuda implies we do not change the day of death. In other words, I was doing something sometimes in the house and I got scared. And she was just looking at me that what's wrong with this boy? So she said that proverb or a statement and it sank into my mind. But if we do not change the day of death, then why are we afraid of death? If death has its own date, it has its own time, and it has its own place. Wherever, however it's going to come. So why do we struggle with something that is always constant?
Well, in philosophy, we call that determinism.
Yeah, okay, fine. Determinism.
Determinism.
Yeah,
yes.
so, but do you believe in determinism?
Well, I'm caught in between.
Okay, because you don't want to go to part of those people who believe in that philosophy.
Yeah, I'm caught in between.
So in this house, my mom, all these kind of things, telling of stories, etc. and etc. like that. And as a result of that, when I was growing up at first, I wanted to go into the sciences, but later on I changed to the humanities because she has sold into me a lot of things about life, stories and things like that. I wrote a short story titled 1,000 Women Across My Grave. And the collection, it was published in an anthology by Penn Nigeria. Penn is a branch of Penn International in Nigeria here.
Yeah.
And the title of the story also was taken from the statement of my mom. Many women across my grave. But the way my mom put it in the Yoruba native language was ọkùnrin tó bá torí obìnrin kan kú, obìnrin púpọ̀ máa gborí sàárè ẹ̀ kọjá. In other words, that was the statement my mom told me the day I fell apart with my first girlfriend. And I came home and I was so sad. And she was just looking at me, what's happening? So I told her. She just smiled. Now look at you. A time is coming, you will understand the world, that you're still going to have a lot of bruises. So she did a lot like this. And these things were things that became like spirits that started haunting me. And I started sitting down later on to write and to do all these things. So it was from the house. It was not all I did in the university. I can tell you categorically that the school may not be able to make a writer. A writer is somehow spun into writing from the outside world. Maybe perhaps a source of influence, something around you. And that is why my advocation is that if you really want to make a great writer, surround a child with a lot of information that is really going to build the child to think of telling the world something that the world has failed to know. So my mom practically was actually the one that spawned me into creative writing.
Okay, but you've not told us about your educational background.
Yeah, exactly. Well, education, sometimes when we talk about this education, in Nigeria...
That's the four words.
Yeah, well, I studied English.
Which school?
University of Lagos.
Yeah.
And I got my master's also in English literature.
Yeah.
And a PhD as well. But, and also at some point in time in my life, while I was in the university, I was also influenced into the field of accountancy to say. And I started my program. After that also I went to ACCA, Associate of Certified Chartered Accountant, and I started running this program as well. And after a while I have to stop in order to complete my PhD program in order to go back into that particular professional qualification. Nonetheless, in most of my resume, I don't really like to emphasize about education, because I always feel that education is what you make of yourself, not what people actually make of you.
There's a very big difference between school and education.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Please, could you enlighten me more so that I can really explain myself? Yeah, because we are all children of learning.
Well, school is what you pass entrance to enter.
Okay.
Understand me? But education comes from experience.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So now, what about...
Education is from your environment, from your home.
Okay.
But schools are restricted areas where you go to, where they put ideas inside you.
Okay. So now, our university system, is it education?
It's a school.
It's a school.
It's a school.
So we shouldn't expect much from them?
No.
Why?
What is it just exposes you to knowledge.
Okay.
it exposes you to knowledge.
Okay.
So from there you can develop on your own. You cannot acquire education on your own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the university is a school. It's never an education.
Okay. Okay. So that it implies that one should not expect to be something a top notch or up there through university system, but through education.
Through education.
Okay. So why then exactly do we now have a problem of people questioning university as a scam, if that should be the case?
Well, in a way, I feel that the school system is also a scam.
Okay.
Because why? When you go out in the society, what they ask you is about your skill.
That's true.
How useful can you be? What value can you add? They don't ask what certificate do you have.
Okay.
Even if you want to go to borrow money from a bank, they will not ask you of your certificate. They'll ask you of your statement of account.
So in that regard, do we suggest to the people opening universities and schools here and there that
they should calm down?
they should calm down,
they should
change the process so that we have more people being educated?
Make it reality oriented.
Okay, reality oriented.
Because at times you graduate, you find you don't have anything. Understand me?
That's true. The reason I'm raising, or I've raised that question, is that even though if you look at the life of Shakespeare never attended any university.
Sure.
Despite that, Shakespeare became one of the greatest writers
to me.
In the
he's
world.
The greatest.
Fine. So now, if he did not, and he was able to get that done without necessary school,
passing through the four
walls of the school,
yes.
So it implies that anybody could be even a far better writer without getting into the school system.
Without getting into the school system.
So should we say that accounts for why a lot of people are now saying that it's not necessary for one to go to school?
Okay. Let me give you a typical example.
Okay.
Chinua Achebe wrote Things Fall Apart at 1958.
Okay.
Then he hadn't entered university.
Okay. Okay.
So after the university, he couldn't write any book that is better than that Things Fall Apart. Things Fall Apart was written from his experiences from his environment. Okay. The stories that he heard from the old people within his environment.
Okay.
So you can see that the school didn't do much good to him with regard to his writing.
Okay. Okay. So school has a way of even making the writer to become
confused.
Okay. So that's exactly what happened to my education, and after then, I've had a couple of experiences traveling, visiting museums, archivals, studying different things that had to do with biographies, writing tours, writing this, writing that. A lot that one cannot start.
Okay, how many books have you written so far?
Well, I've written about 8 of them.
At what age did you begin to write consciously?
Well, consciously, I think that should be at the age of 18.
18?
Yes, 18. By then, I was about to get into the university. So I started keeping notes at home, because my mom, one way or the other, she usually give me, she's a Christian, so she's always asking me to be reading the Bible, jotting things like that and like that. And on the other hand, my own father is a Muslim, so he too was doing his own. So like this confusion you talk about, everybody was just doing theirs at home. So jotting things down, I started jotting ideas. When I go to places, I see people, I jot some things down about them. In fact, as a matter of fact, almost all what I'm writing up till today, they came from jottings that I've made for 15 to 20
over
years
the
ago.
Years.
Yeah, exactly. But for now, it seems there is nothing so new again. So most of those jottings are things that I'm going back to pick them up. So at 18, before getting to the university, I've been jotting down my points, my stories, and things I really want to tell the world.
Okay, did you at a point experience discouragement?
Wow.
Because for me, an instance in the secondary school, I remember after writing something which I could call a book, I gave it to a very good friend of mine. I told him, Fred, go through this and give me a feedback. After a week, the guy came back and just said, Peter, I don't like this. Did you ever experience such a thing?
In fact, if you're talking about experiencing discouragement, I have severally. As a matter of fact, because I wanted to be a writer, it has reduced me greatly to where I am today. But there's one thing that is certain. I knew quite well that I'm not writing for the people, I'm not writing for the present time. I'm writing because of the future. And I'm not writing because I want to make immediate money. I'm writing because I have a message. And that message is exactly what I'm trying to put down. There's a lot of discouragement, especially when you come to the Nigerian environment, being a writer around here. Starting from your publishers, down to your editors, down to the proofreaders, and those colleagues that will be questioning you, how are you going to survive with this kind of trade that you cannot make them proud? But the good part of it was that when I wrote a book one time, the title of the book is Merchant of Trouble.
Yeah.
Merchant of Trouble. Fortunately for me, I sold more than 15,000 pieces of that book, which is very unusual. Now, yeah.
Yes, in Nigeria setting.
Yes. And in fact, I was so surprised because when it was recommended in some places and they started calling for supplies, at a point in time, even a film producer approached us and told us that they wanted to use it for a movie, but we could not reach a conclusion because of some of the agreements could not really go in line with what suits us. So now the issue there is that when that book was actually written, I sent it to a friend in the States to help me to take a look. And the person said, oh, look, this thing is just, I don't know, the person just threw it somewhere. And for that statement alone, I got discouraged. I left the book. But about a year or two later, I decided to pick up the book and I decided to put it together. I tried to send it out. No publisher was accepting. So I decided to go and self-publish it myself. But you can't believe that I have a book titled Mr. Grammar, published by a traditional publisher, where you don't put your money, the publisher puts his or her money.
Yes.
Currently, I have a contract with Learn Africa on a novel. I also have a novel also with Accessible Publishers. And some of the ones I did with all these publishing houses and things like that, I can tell you that I've not recorded up to 6,000 sales, like the one that was outrightly rejected. So the field of writing is a very complex thing. What you think that other people may not want,
it's what other people want.
Exactly.
Well,
so the discouragement was so much. In fact, at the point in time when I left the university at first, I remember I came back home and I started writing. I started talking to my mom. Both of us, we stayed together in the house. So sometimes I listened to her over the night, jotting down my stories and writing, because my mother has a lot to tell me. She has succeeded to travel all the 36 states in Nigeria. She has traveled so well because my father was a military man. So she followed my father around the country. So she has a lot of experiences with people, issues of life. So sometimes by then, when I knew this, I usually come back home to listen to her. I would tell her, tell me the story of that you people's neighbor that killed himself. Tell me the story of you and my father when you people were going around 2 a.m. in the middle of the night around Bauchi and your car got stuck. And you said my father asked you to come out and my father took you up the hills for both of you to go and hide. And from there, you saw the monkeys and the gorillas. They came out and they were pounding on the car.
In the car, yeah.
So I was like, so at a point in time, my mother now turned back and told me, said, but do you think you can make money out of this stuff? So it was a very discouraging voice, because she saw that graduation, you came back home, you're just so much interested about this story. Are you going to make money from it? I told her that later, don't worry, that even if I can't make money from some of these stories, I will make a name to remain at least for 100 and 200 years to come. That was the consolation I used to resolve. Exactly, I used to resolve it, because if not, my mom was already apprehensive about the old stuff. And you know, when we're going for writing and writers conferences and programs, a lot of we writers, we are more like deviants, radicals,
outcasts in the
exactly.
society.
So we not necessarily conform to anything. Like, for instance, now I don't have a car, and the reason for that is, do you know, I like entering public buses, going through Uber, going through all these kind of things,
so that you can be listening to people.
Exactly. So as I keep going, I listen to them. What exactly is their problem? How do they want to resolve it? And things like that. In fact, there is a case study of one. I think that should be towards what is that? Somewhere there. And there was a man on suit, well dressed, and he was on bus. And there's this other woman with a basket. And all of a sudden, something from the basket fell on this man, and the whole cloth was, you know. So this man now asked the woman that, why do you do this to me? And from there, there's this altercation that came up. That was where I had the man now told he wanted to insult the woman. He now said, you're a nincompoop. I was like, how do you use this kind of words?
So this woman, well, it's called coarse language. In the sense that you are talking above the person's intelligence. He doesn't even understand
I love what the woman did. The woman now responded. He said, what about you? He said, what about you? You are a fake. So the expressions were something that were natural. So when I was writing Mr. Grammar, one of my plays, I now had to feature those two funny characters there. And there is another character such as like Baba Libya, walking so far, one madman in the north. That guy is always, you know, people call him to be mad. But when you see the guy made an expression that sank into me as a child. And the guy said, I know what I'm doing. It is what is doing me that I don't know. So that's, he says it going around. And I know if a madman is saying, I knew what I'm doing, is what is doing me that I don't know. Perhaps I thought that I'm not mad, I too, I could be mad because I knew what I'm also doing. But what is actually doing me, I don't know. So to be a writer and to be a successful writer, because there are layers of writers that we need to come to understand. There are writers that are writing for the sake of publicity, acceptance, money. But if you're writing for the sake of posterity, you may not easily meet success along the way.
But you will become a better writer.
Yes, you become a better writer because you are really following with the trade. You are really interested in the trade. You really want to give your best to the trade, and you are out there to listen to the society and interpret them as well.
You say you've written 8 books.
Yeah.
Which one is your favorite?
Well, just like I said, that Merchant of Trouble.
Yeah.
He is, because one of the things I love that text is because it mirrors the Nigerian situation. The kind of society whereby, you know, this society is like we are in trouble actually, but we don't know. And on every day, we try as much as possible to deceive each other by trying to pretend that everything is fine. But we all know quite well that things are not fine. So that particular book actually is one of the most treasured of them all. But I have a novel that is about to come out, Ominla the Inexplicable. I think that is likely going to be my best.
Well, congrats if you have a best. But for me as a writer, I don't have, my best is the one that I'm here to read.
Right. Yeah,
To
well,
write.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so people who go into writing always think of one thing,
Okay.
most to make money. How do you see this?
Oh, well, actually, writing is a ministry. Writing is a ministry, and I don't think is for money making. Yeah. Writing is a ministry. I don't think it's for money making. And anybody who is talking about making money in writing, I think the whole essence of writing is already missing. Because if you look back to some of the great writers of times, ages, century, decades, unfortunately, that has actually been watered down currently. If you listen and you read and you try to search for those writers such as Dostoevsky, the Russian writer,
Yes.
you talk about T.S. Eliot, you talk about people like even William Shakespeare, you talk about Golding, who wrote The Lord of the Flies,
Yeah.
you talk about Richard Wright and the likes of them, people like Bessie Head, even Akachi Ademore Ezegbo, one of them in Nigeria here. I'm not talking about those people that the world, writing itself has a lot of politics involved. There are those writers that people are just doing what I call publicity for them. And this publicity is going to only take a book from one point to the other. But that publicity cannot sustain a book to enter into eternal canon. For a book or for a writer to enter into eternal canon, you need to write something that is extraordinary. For instance, look at this book, 1984, written by George Orwell.
Yeah.
1984, people were not even reading that book. Do you know that of few years ago now, that book sold millions of pieces? Just when the situations that George Orwell foretold started happening, even in the American society.
Are you talking about the Animal Farm?
No, he wrote Animal Farm and he wrote 1984.
Okay.
So after writing Animal Farm, he now wrote like another one, a sequel to it called 1984, whereby it mirrors the Big Brother syndrome. That Big Brother you see in Big Brother Niger,
Yeah.
the concept was taken from 1984.
Okay.
There's this Big Brother concept, which is exactly what is affecting us in the society. There's this Big Brother who talks to us, who controls us, who dictates for us, yet we can't see him. He controls our lives. He decides for us. And we all believe that the Big Brother's concept is the best for us. We have never tried in our best of thought to question the Big Brother's thought. It's just like that Big Brother's thought is like the God thoughts, the authority thoughts, and all those things that society has positioned to be the one to determine the way we live. So it's being questioned. So, but this kind of books were not books that were easily accepted. As a matter of fact, George Orwell himself died as a pauper. He was never rich, but he had what I can call billions in his estate. The estate is what all those books and everything you've written, what they are likely going to generate in the future. What about Agatha Christie? Agatha Christie's estate today worth more than $200 million. But when she was alive, it wasn't like that. So writers are like people that are called into ministries.
Somebody like J.K. Run is now a billionaire.
Yeah.
That's the first author billionaire in the world.
Maybe perhaps you or me
But
will be the next year. The next. Okay, yeah, I'm listening, sir.
okay, so how do you people define Nigeria as a readiness society?
Okay.
How do you see it?
Oh, well, to
Okay. Is it because authors are not writing good books or Nigerians don't want to read?
Well, there. I think the two issues, the 2 points you've made, they are quite germane to that question. In the sense that, one, good books, whether the writers are not writing good books, I can tell you that most of the books that are being accepted by the general public are books that are being politicized. When I talk about books that have been politicized, a lot of books that you find all around, majority of them are the books that either the author or the publisher has millions of naira to push it around and make it to become like the talk of the town. So as a result of that, I can tell you categorically that the real writers who really have the message, some of them, they don't have the time for such kind of publicity. They don't. Because, you know, it's like somebody that is being possessed by a spirit. When you're talking, you're not talking because you want to talk. You're talking because you are being asked to talk. So these writers that are, I can't say that are all out there. You need to look deeply so that you will not be deceived. Majority of the kind of things they are presenting before us is why a lot of people are not even interested any longer to read them. On the other hand, about the society, yes, the Nigerian society has depleted, has degenerated, and has cascaded below the lowest ebb that anybody can ever understand in any history of any time. I can explain myself. Now, the question is this. You can measure a society by the quantum of how rational the citizens they operate. You head into an election year now, or we're already in an election year. Check the reasoning quantum of these average Nigerians. It is going to tell you if these people are good readers or they understand what is happening. For instance, why in the West you can see their scientists are doing everything to go into the space, come up with network, come up with all manner of things in order to steal our own money in Africa.
Sure.
Our own, they are there building labs, and the highest thing they could be talking about is malaria and all those things like that, because there is a problem and nobody is questioning anybody. I was reading on the pages of newspaper that said the vice chancellor stole 200 million naira in his university. Yes, it's possible.
And in Cross River now, a professor is in prison for rigging election for a school site holder.
Exactly. So these are the kind of the people that are supposed to be the determiner of how the pace of the society should be. Sir, I'm sorry to say, education, certification in Nigeria is a matter of commitment for the daily bread. It's not a commitment in order to increase the intelligent quotient. So as a result of that, we have a lot of people in Nigeria today, they don't even know their left from their right. They are just living. Even the ones in the offices. Okay, let me ask a question. Why is it that most of, like even our music, most of all the lyrics and everything, you will just hear, what about our footballers? What happened to them? Then the other sectors, you will just see that all of a sudden you will see something, everything will go down. What about the banking sector? What happened to the banking sector when it was booming? What about the Nigerian stock exchange during the time of Andy Okereke and the likes of them?
Yeah.
What so that was how when those things were booming, everybody would just jump. And Nigeria, we are very good in this.
Bandwagon effect.
Exactly, everybody's moving there. And at the end of the day, problem. So, and it's as a result of what? When the society don't read, you're going to see it in the kind of leadership they produce. For God's sake, you can't come now and start telling me something that is completely out of place. You can't tell me to go and kill because I am a Christian or I'm a Muslim. Because I would think about my logic. How appropriate is what you're telling me? I can't go to either the church or the mosque and the pastor will start behaving as if it is a demigod. I'm going to walk away because I know that the creation of the universe is not in the hands of anybody. So that is what education could do. Our Nigerian politicians usually keep money for elections because they know that the fools in the society will need the money for them to get their ways. But once the society is well enlightened, and that is why you see our politicians, they don't fund our libraries. Our politicians don't fund reading culture. Our politicians don't fund all these things. But what do they fund? They will help you to fund sports. They will help you to fund jamborees. They will help you to fund campaigns. They will help you to buy ashwebi. They will help you to do all these things, knowing fully well that all these things are going to make the citizens to remain slaves.
Well, a saying has it that no nation can grow beyond its scholarship.
Yeah, so that's exactly what is happening. Like, for instance, when you see all that is happening around us in Nigeria, you know quite well that we're already in a shit already, because there is no way we can go out of it. If you're saying A, somebody is saying B, just because they are not intelligent or expected or as intelligent as they're expected to be. Imagine somebody was saying something and I was just like, they said, when you get to, I'm sorry to say, sometimes a writer could be political. He said, when you get to Lagos, they are doing good jobs, they are doing that. I said, look, land use charge, tenement rates, they collect a loan in Lagos on one street is enough. Calculate all the houses in Lagos. If you're even taking 10,000 naira from all of them, you collect in a year. That is in billions. So, and somebody who is not well intelligent enough, we said, oh, these guys are doing fantastic. You already have a lot of money on ground for them to do. It's only a madman that will be in the pool of money and he doesn't spend them.
Yes, sure.
So why are you congratulating somebody over something that is available all over the space?
And he's doing what is expected
And he's doing what is expected of him. So why are you congratulating him? And it's because of lack of political education. You know what books do is that books will educate you politically, will educate you socially, will educate you psychologically. So an average person who reads is far wiser than 77 ancestors.
That's a good one.
Yeah, far wiser than all of them. Because at a dot, it thinks at a very far range. For instance, somebody came one day and he said, excuse me, why is it that somebody came to my house, he said, I can't find any woman in this house. So what is happening here? And I've been here for this. I said, well, there's no any woman here, so let's just
It's a matter of interest.
It's a matter of interest, but an average person, maybe, I'm sorry, my apology to the Yoruba people. As soon as they start making little income, the next thing is to just get a woman and they start populating the society and creating problem for those of us who even have no population in the society. And all these things are boiling down to education. You don't need anybody to tell you to do either contraceptive or control child or this or that if you are well educated.
Sure.
You cannot now take your children and send them to school whereby you need to steal in order to pay their school fees. It just shows a sign that the knowledge itself is not enough. So that's what books do to an average society. And I can tell you, for instance, if you go and read about Steve Jobs, I was reading in one of his biographies, and he has taken a lot of his time to study a lot. Though he's not a professor in the university.
Outside the four walls
outside the four walls of the school.
Sure.
So he's already a professor par excellence in what he does. I met a man, they call him World Rapper Man or whatsoever. He said something. He said, before you can call yourself a master of anything, you must have spent 200,000 hours in that stuff.
Yes.
Before you can call yourself a master.
That's in business. It's called they call it 10,000 hour rule.
Okay, 10,000 hour rule. So maybe perhaps you enlighten us.
They call
more
it
about
the 10,000 hour rule.
Okay.
For you to become a master, and that's consistency between 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
That's doing that same thing
over and over.
Over and over for between 5 to 6 years.
And do you know that is why in America and some of the Western world, they usually have a lot of achievements on ground because they spend a lot of time. But check my own brothers in Nigeria and sisters, somebody coming, he worked in the bank for 5 years. He left the bank, he became a civil servant for the next 10 years. The next time he's going into agriculture. So where is going to be the mastery?
No expertise.
No expertise. And this thing is as a result of lack of education. And the education boils back to the reading. If the people are reading, I tell you the truth, if I had even known that education is the way it is, I wouldn't have gone to school. I would have sat at home and I'm going to do all my readings. Because I can tell you categorically that majority of what I knew and what I'm doing today, there were things that I got on my personal readings and effort. My teachers in the schools, they were just like people that engaged us because of their salaries.
Sure.
And they just only succeeded in wasting more time in the lives of those people they thought they are trying to bring up, except there's a change. But with what we have on ground, that's just exactly the way it is.
So, but how do you think that the reading culture could be improved upon?
Fine. Number one, if the reading culture would be improved upon, the ideology of the society had to change. Nigeria, though people don't know that Nigeria has become what I can call a monetized society. Unfortunately, reading does not pay off in the short run. It only pays off in the long run.
Long run, sure.
So if you having people that want to really make quick money, don't come there. Because if you go there, you can't really make it. That's just the truth. So, one, that kind of mindset had to change. Without that, you cannot develop readers. Okay, for instance, what are our governors? What are they saying? What is your president saying? What are your ministers saying? Have you ever seen any minister in Nigeria come outside to brag that I read about 15 to 17 books? No. But you go to your Senate, you see somebody comes out to say that I have 17 wives and 44 children, and people will clap hand for them. That kind of society will go down. Because even the leaders that we are looking at that are supposed to be the paragon for us, they are not leading, they are not really making anybody to be interested in reading. What do you want to read? The other time, Obama, all the time, maybe in a year, he's going to come out with a list of books that he's reading or that he's about to read or whatsoever. When your own governor, if you're a writer, you write to governors in Nigeria, of which I've been in some of the governors' lodge before, I've been in some of their meetings before, but the funniest part of it is that if you come in to talk about books, to talk about anything intellectual, they are going to tell you that they don't have time for it.
Oh, you're not talking.
Yeah, you're not talking. But you know what? As soon as, those set of people talk about if somebody that is doing the movie and whether they write, they quickly find a way to endorse them. They give them all the things, but they fail to realize one thing. All those people are for the immediate. The writer is for the future. I had an experience that made me to have some kind of deep reflection. I think it was something that had to do with Yale University. And I was on with the other white guys over there, and there was just like this kind of interview that was being done, and we're talking. My name is Olatubosun. There is a Nigerian writer known as Olarotimi who wrote The Gods Are Not to Blame.
Because I'm not to blame,
yeah.
Yes.
He studied in Yale, and his play, Our Husband Has Gone Mad Again, won the first prize in Yale.
Yeah.
I never knew that he was even the first Nigerian to be given such kind of accolade and things like that. So immediately we set on that particular talk. The first thing the white guy asked me was that he said, "Are you related to Olarotimi?"
Yeah.
I was like, I also want to steal the shine. I don't want to tell the guy that, look, I'm not related, because he saw Olatubosun, Olarotimi. So he felt that these guys must be from the same family. I said, well, do you know something? And what happened is that in Nigeria, among the Yoruba people, we share names, and sometimes we are from the same patrimony. I just have to look for English to still put it and make him to believe that both of us, we came from the same extraction, because I don't know the privilege I'm going to get from what the guy was talking about.
It's not just a Nigerian thing. When Jerry Ford was running for American president,
Okay.
people were asking him, "Are you related to Henry Ford?" He never said no. He never said yes.
Yeah, exactly. Why will you say
He
no?
want to move with that name, Ford.
Yeah, so when the guy said that, the guy now said, you know, that guy is the only one that has so record in Yale. And he started saying a lot of good things about him. But do you know that those guys, they don't even know the name of your president?
Sure.
And I was surprised how that shows what a writer could do to a society. So my society is being known because a writer came from my society. But when Olarotimi was alive, who gave the hoot about him? Nobody.
Nobody.
But who knows that he has written things like that? Just like somebody like Soyinka and the likes of them. When you get to some of all these conferences and things like that, immediately Soyinka, a Yoruba guy, are you a Yoruba guy? You said yes. Yeah. Immediately they give you some kind of respect.
Because of Soyinka.
Because of Soyinka.
Yeah.
And that shows the single effort contributed by one man who is a writer.
Yeah.
Because even after 50 years, 100 years, the name will still be there. When they study him in Oxford, they study him in Yale, they study him in Harvard, they studied him all over the places. Your president, who is a political miscreant,
just 4 years.
Just 4 years is gone.
It's gone.
But our society don't think from that perspective. So as a result of that, they look at books, reading as something that belongs to some group of gangsters or intellectual gangsters. That's the way they see it. But if they could see it from this angle, okay, the question you ask yourself is, during the time of Shakespeare, there was a rich man, and there was a man known as the richest man. Today, there's no record that can trace the richest man in the world in the 1840s. And even in the 1900s, nothing can change them, nothing can trace them. But Shakespeare was not a rich guy. He was just an ordinary guy, but concentrated on his writing. And as at today, you have him all over the place. And it's even worth more than the richest man that ever lived. So today, if I should say that, okay, look, the Dangote that you're seeing, not that we are making any comparison or whatsoever, there are some of us that are writers, we are far richer than Dangote. Will you believe that? Yeah, because after 100 years or 200 years, you may not hear anything again about all these tradings. But I can assure you that after 100 years, there are some of us that you will still go to Washington Library, you're going to meet us there. You're going to go to Oxford Library, you're going to still meet us there. That is what those writers are doing for the society, and the society don't know about that.
Yes, I want to share an information.
Okay.
Somebody said, Onda Taufik is making sense. He's a prolific writer. Kudos to you guys in the studio. From Fondo Agor.
Okay, it's one of my ogas. Okay, so that's exactly what usually happens. And I even have a friend in the house also.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry for just going on and on and on and on.
Can he introduce himself?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oluwarinde Olaoluwa.
Okay.
It's a privilege to be invited here by my elder brother. And
yeah, exactly. You
can senior colleague, as he calls himself.
Is he also a member of the ward?
Yeah, you see, this particular, let me call him a guy. Yeah, let's go to the streets. This guy, I love him so much, and I invited him here because we've been roving the places together sometimes. When I have shows, talk shows, and things like that. He usually go with me because the reason is that this guy and myself, we were able to win a trophy for our university where I was working for before, and he was a student by then.
Okay.
We won the public speaking award in the old Nigeria University.
Which school was that?
That was Mountain Top University.
Mountain Top University.
Yeah, exactly, by then. So we came with a trophy.
Okay.
And he did the job. I was his coach.
Okay.
So both the coach and the person who is going to do the job, we were there together. So we were able to win the trophy.
So it's a good team.
Yeah, we did that in the University of Ife, and it was not an easy thing for us because we defeated schools like University of Port Harcourt. You know, the Port Harcourt girl just give me a gist. Yeah, you see, these are what we talk about reading. On that day, while the debate, the public speaking and whatsoever were going on, you know, we sat down we read a lot of books, like
A whole
Obama's speech, Hope, Audacities, what so have you, Malcolm X's speeches. Read them. We both night and day were studying those speeches, we're taking notes of what is to be done. But I'm sorry to say, there is a girl from Port Harcourt, University of Port Harcourt or something like that, River State University, I don't know. That girl was so good. She speaks well. But our major problem was that, I'm sorry, with all due apology, I don't want to say your G5 guy. There's a guy leading your G5 guy. The way that guy talks, that was the way the girls also. That was also the way she does her presentation. So it was too lousy. Like you're shouting on people, cha, 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 and all that, and all that. That's what Nigerian politicians, that's what they do. You don't have respect for your audience. You don't have respect for your listeners. You don't have respect. There's a level of decorum that should be brought into whatever we're doing. So in order for us not to divert, this guy and myself were able to do that magic there and were able to get it done. So that's why when I was coming to the studio, I said, let him come along so that we can have
Okay.
full day here.
Taufik, so what is the way forward? There are a lot of Nigerian youths who want to be authors. What's your advice?
You must be ready to make a lot of sacrifices. That's one. Number two, and you must take out time to also be a reader. Well, we're not talking about people churning out rubbish that cannot sustain time. There are books and there are also books. We know that. When we see them, we know them. So it takes a lot of time for you to be able to get yourself grounded in something that you want to do for you to become a perfectionist in it. So they need time to go back into the libraries and other things in order for them to get themselves well equipped before coming out. So by so doing, I think we're going to have good writers emerging from different fronts.
But we're in a material world.
Yeah. When you talk about material world, I know you studied philosopher. During the time of people like Al-Ghazali, Al-Farabi, and the likes of those Middle East philosophers.
Yeah, sure.
The period was a period whereby the people there too, they were also talking about materialism. But some decided to distinguish themselves.
Yes, to separate themselves
Exactly.
from the crowd.
Yeah, during the time of Malcolm X as well, there were a lot of bootlickers, the blacks, like he would say the Uncle Toms children, the slaves who loves their master more than their master loves them. So those set of...
And the same thing still happening in Nigeria today.
So you have all these John and Joans across the place, and you always have them all the time. So we are not really being moved by them. So irrespective of whether people are tending towards materialism, it's inconsequential for you to make a point that you need to make. So the point that you're going to make is that, look, I want to be immortalized. I want to do something that is going to become immortal. If I must do this, one, I must not listen to the voice of the crowd. The society is a crowd. If the society knew well, they wouldn't be called the crowd. It is because of their deficiencies. That is why they are referred to as the society. In other words, something social.
Yeah.
So there's nothing so big about it. So as a writer, one must extract himself away from them. Because if I must listen to you, you should be nobler than me.
Sure.
So because if you are not nobler than me and you're asking me to listen to you, then what do you want me to get from you? So just like you have the pastors, the priests, and the etc. of them, that is the way the writers are expected to be operating in the society. Unfortunately, we know quite well that men of God and the Celestian set of people in this particular dispensation, they've bastardized the issue of spiritualism.
They've gone
material. So in those days, we knew how these things are. Okay, even in the Islamic world, people like Gumi in the north, how did he die? People like Ayo Babalola, how did he die? But our own case now, a lot of them, they go for their checks abroad. Their medical checks abroad. They use the money of the people in order to help their own life. In fact, we heard about the offshore and the whatsoever, where some people went to invest their money in the Virgin Islands and things like that. So the essence of that spiritualist is already deadened. There's nothing to look up to. I'm sorry to say, people do criticize a lot of them. People like Guru Maharaji along the way there. The guy has been there for many years. I was born, I grew up to know that when passing through that route, that guy is always there. And the guy has been consistent for many years. And one thing I like about consistent people is that they are going to leave something behind. They may be doing it and you may call them fools. But because their foolishness will become what will become wisdom in the long run, that's why they keep doing it, so that it can metamorphose to become the wisdom that the world is going to search for. Mind you, Socrates was a man that was in prison, was not respected until after he was killed. Jesus himself was not respected until after he was also killed. Similarly, Muhammad was also run into trouble and got into extinction before he was respected. So these are the ways of the real writers. Shakespeare also ran into his own problem. The man I told you about who wrote Animal Farm, he too died. If I should tell you that the guy's girlfriend,
Karl Marx too, of all people.
Of all people. So if you want to get this kind of writers from Nigerian society, man, you have to do a lot of work. Because you can't find those kind of people at the surface level. There are people that they don't wake up in the morning and they go and pray because everybody is praying. There are people who don't wake up on Sunday and go to churches because people are going to church. There are people who don't follow conventions. There are people who want to be thinkers and they want to bring their thought into this world so that this world will get something that is quite new for them.
Yeah.
So a writer is somebody that is a little bit quite different from the normal.
Okay, Dr. Taufik, unfortunately, our time is running out.
Okay.
What's your passing shot?
Well, my passing shot is provide or produce one writer, the lineage, the name, the generation, the society, the community will remain for the next 200 years and will spread all over the world. There are a lot of places your society and your language cannot get to. Your writer can get there. So that is why every society should strive to produce a writer. Achebe made the Igbo culture to be popular all over the world today when you talk about things fall apart.
Yes, his book was translated into 50 different languages.
So that's why it's also very great to produce a writer. So when you see a writer, respect them.
Well, they say that a library card can take you further than air transport.
Exactly.
Understand me? So, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for the invitation.
We hope to do this thing same time next week.
Okay.
This is The Pages. Thanks for listening.
Welcome.